Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Last year I made a video after the book longlist was announced, explaining why you don't need to read the book longlist. I gave a whole load of perfectly spurious reasons for each book. And this year I'm looking at a list which I kind of like. And I've got here one book from the list which I've already read, two books from the list which I already own, five other books here, books written by authors who are on this year's list. So I've five authors that I've already read. And I think of the remainder, there may be two, maybe even three books that I'm kind of interested in. So after sort of having a long history of reading the Booker, the shortlist, if not the long list, and certainly the winner, I've kind of fallen out of the habit and haven't for the last couple of years. I think last year the only book from the long list I read was Western Lane. I didn't think it was terribly good. But this year, I've kind of had a dog in the fight, and that's the one that I've read, and I reviewed it even a couple of months ago because they sent me an ARC, and this is Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. This is an ARC, that's why it doesn't have that thing on the cover. ARC Advanced Reader's Copy, which I was sent to review, and I read this and absolutely loved it. I'd read the Essex Serpent. I don't know where my copy of the Essex Serpent has gone, but I'd loved that book so much and skipped Melmoth the Wanderer, and probably only read this because someone sent me a free copy, but it's so good. I loved it so much. It's so full of kindness, a beautiful writing, and I'd be really excited. Well, first of all, I'm just excited that more people are going to read it because it's on this list. I'd love to hear what people make of it when they get to it, and I'd love to see it advance because I think this is a precious book that I really, really enjoyed. Also on this list, two books that I own but haven't read. One of them seems to be sort of in one of the favourites, maybe the top two or three. James by Percival Everett. I've read four Percival Everett books so far. I've got this. I've also got a copy of I Am Not Sidney Poitier, because one of my reading projects is to read more Percival Everett, and that's ever since I read The Trees, which I think is a superior novel, was shortlisted for the Booker Prize that year. I think should have won. Really looking forward to get to James. A big fan of Huckleberry Finn, a book I know reasonably well. So really looking forward to get to this, and I'll do that quite soon. And then the other book that I purchased recently, just because I liked the sound of it and I liked the fact that it was short and now has made it to the long list, is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. I haven't read Samantha Harvey, but this book is 130 pages, so how tough can that be? And it's about people orbiting the Earth. Looking forward. It's kind of, I think there was smacks of Max Porter, that kind of vibe maybe, but I'm okay. I'm always here for a 140-page book. Okay, of the other books on the list, there are five authors that I've read before. So one of the other books on the list is, I'll do them one by one here, Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. And I read The Mars Room when it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2018. I think that might be the last year, or one of the last years, where I read the entire shortlist. And I read this, and I spoke about this the other day because it came up in someone's top 10 books of the 21st century. And I mentioned then that I thought this was done better in Orange is the New Black, which I watched at least the first couple of seasons of, and then my daughter watched more of it. But this is set in a women's correctional facility, and you get a bit of the backstory and all things that I'd seen on TV like a year before this came out. So I wasn't a huge fan of The Mars Room. I haven't, not super attracted to Creation Lake, but possibly. Then the other one I should do in the same breath is the Richard Powers one, so Playground. And I understand that both Creation Lake and Playground aren't even published yet in the UK, but Playground by Richard Powers is another one. And also, this was shortlisted the same year as The Mars Room, so this is from the 2018, that shortlist that I read, The Overstory, which I did like very much. Not so much that I've gone back and read other books by Richard Powers, even other shortlisted books by him. I think 2018 was the year that Milkman won, which is one of the most deserving, one of the best books to have won the Booker Prize, so I wasn't unhappy with that decision. But two authors, will I read another book by Rachel Kushner or Richard Powers? I'm not sure. Another author on the list that I read is, the nominated book is Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. I read his previous novel, There, which came out, is 2018, so is that really 5-6 years ago that I would have read this? And I thought this was perfectly okay. I thought this was a little MFA. I happen to be reading right now Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, which I'm about halfway through. It's fantastic. I would have loved to have seen that on this long list. And the first acknowledgement, the first blurb on that book is by Tommy Orange. The first acknowledgement in the is Tommy Orange. I think he calls him his bandmate or his ride or die, or whatever it is. And I just think they came up together in Iowa Creative Writing MFA or whatever, or one of those programs. This was fine. I just thought it was a little undercooked. I understand that Wandering Stars is both a prequel and a sequel to this. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe I'd have to do a quick refresher on what happens in there. But I just wasn't wholly convinced. This was just a little bit. Wasn't wholly convinced by there. They're not sure I'm going to read Wandering Stars, or maybe I will now that it's been nominated. Maybe. Another author who appears on this list that I read one of her previous books, so Held by Anne Michaels, has been added to the long list. I previously read Fugitive Pieces by Anne Michaels, which won the Orange Prize for Fiction. I think this was the second ever winner of the Orange Prize for Fiction in about 1998, which then became the Women's Prize. So this was very, very early on. She's a Canadian poet, and I remember reading this and thinking this had been written by a poet. It was just a little slow and a little tough, and I didn't overlove this book. But I guess like on Darche, there are a few poets who've written that. There was a book shortlist a few years ago by Robin Robertson, The Long Take, and poets becoming novelists is something I've struggled with. I get Ocean Vuong is an exception. I thought On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous was fantastic, but I didn't love Fugitive Pieces, or at least it hasn't stayed with me in a way that would drive me to read another of her books, another of her novels. And then the last author that I've read also on this list is This Strange Eventful History by Claire Massoud, and I read The Emperor's Children many years ago. When is this? 2008 is this? Okay, so not that many years ago, but wow, that's 15 years ago. And I thought this was good. This is like a solid, one of those great American novel kind of books. Of what I've read of The Strange Eventful History, not crazy about it. Interesting thing about Claire Massoud is her husband is James Wood, who is a very well-known book critic. I think he's now at The New Yorker. So they're kind of a power couple. She's being longlisted for prize-winning novels. He may be the most famous currently working book critic. I don't know how much that plays into anything except that they're of this world, and probably a horrible thing to notice the fact that she has a famous husband, but I think there's something about the sort of insider nature of this whole thing. Okay, those are all the books that I know. From the books that I don't know, there's a couple that are super interesting to me. So first of all, I'll leave those to the end, because the others, the ones I haven't mentioned, there's some very boring names here. So Wild Houses by Colin Barrett. Colin Barrett is not a name that inspires confidence. Colin's my middle name, but Colin Barrett is kind of Wild Houses. Is that the sort of thriller? Yes, Irish. I saw. So the cover is blurbed. On the cover, there's a quote from both Sally Rooney and Kevin Barry, which is that's Irish squared. So that's really making they have to have at least one Irish author. I think that's in the constitution of Booker, and Wild Houses seems to be the one. And this is something about criminals and things which got a kind of Kevin Barry vibe to it. Maybe not Colin Barrett. Do I need to read a book by someone called Colin Barrett? Maybe not. What else is on here? Names. Oh yeah, this other name. Also, sort of another colonial left behind. Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. She's an Australian author, and her name's Charlotte Wood. I'm not buying it. It's just not an interesting enough name. Now, of the remaining, I think I've got three left, three great names. So one of them is a book called My Friends by Hisham Attar, which I haven't read. Hisham Attar, I haven't read his non-fiction, and this is a work of fiction that really I'm seeing a lot of raves for. I think with James, this is probably the two favorites right now. I haven't read anything by this author, and this is what I'm kind of tempted to. It looks like it's almost 500 pages, which kind of puts me off. But maybe if I find a copy somewhere, I might do that. I've got a lot of things to read in the meantime, so I'm not rushing out. But My Friends by Hisham Attar is a kind of book that could interest me. If this gets to the shortlist come September, I may find an excuse to pick up a copy. And then the last two names are really great names, both these. So this is they are in competition for the No Violet Bulawayo Prize of excellent author names. Two of them here. One of them is Rita Bullwinkle. I mean, whatever you do, if you're called Rita Bullwinkle, it's going to be fantastic. She has a book called Headshot, which is, I understand, about 8 women boxers and inside their heads and they're fighting each other. Rita Bullwinkle, I'm here for you. I think a fantastic author name. That's a gift in an age where authors are constantly having to promote themselves and sell themselves. If I'm a publishing company, I would much rather have Rita Bullwinkle on my books than Colin Barrett. Sorry, Colin. Sorry, Charlotte Wood. Rita Bullwinkle is already a winner. And then the last one, in a similar but completely different vein, is a book called The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden. Yael van der Wooden. It's a great, strong, biblical Jewish name. Yael was the woman who nailed a peg into Sisera's head to win the war. I love the name Yael. And van der Wooden is just deliciously Dutch. So that's a book. I think it's Sapphic. I think it's Jewish. I think it's about Dutch people. I think post-war. Yael van der Wooden is a Van der Wooden, I mean, it's like so Gossip Girl. Marvelous. So both Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle and The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden are on my radar now, having not heard of them previously. And I may chase either of those down, depending on how things pan out. And My Friends by Hisham Attar. Yeah, not a bad long list, at least in terms of my interest. I was ready to come here and poo-hoo and say silly things about the books. But yeah, maybe I'm back. I'm thinking I'm back. God bless, bye.